Damaged Defenders by Sherza. Chapter 79. Bruce and Peter. Well, so, the attempt to work with Hulk had gone far better than Bruce had ever dared to hope. Tony, rather predictably, had taken video of the entire thing. He had evidently put recording equipment in trees around the area they'd chosen for the attempt. It was actually the first time Bruce had been able to see Hulk in action clearly. There had been a very few shaky videos on the internet, snippets of the incident at Culver and in Harlem mostly, since his other incidents hadn't taken place in very populated areas, never mind areas that were both populated and affluent enough for the residents to possess some form of recording device and an internet connection. Unfortunately, phone cameras did not good videos make, especially when the people holding said phone cameras were running and hiding for their lives. The video Tony had taken had been crystal clear and perfectly steady. And it had changed literally everything. Left Bruce with a lot to think about. He'd been grateful for the distractions being in Asgard provided above and beyond those provided by helping with Sergeant Barnes. Bruce knew he really needed to think about this and deal with the conclusions he came to, but overturning the beliefs of nearly a decade was not easily done, nor was it a comfortable process. So procrastination was a relief. He got something else to think about and deal with when they got back to the tower, but really, thinking about that was liable to bring Hulk out to play, because it made him more than slightly hot under the collar. So it was a relief the next morning when Jarvis announced that Peter was in the lobby. John and Rogue had told them about the kid, that he was too strong for his size and moved oddly to boot, that they'd offered to help him, that they'd send him on to Xavier if the Avengers wanted them to, but had figured that having someone in the city Peter could contact first would be a good idea. The kid who'd come into the common floor dining room had taken all of a half second to fix it on Natasha and looked utterly terrified. Smart boy. Before Bruce could do anything, Sam stepped up and managed to set the poor kid more at ease. Or at least get the kid to look less terrified anyway. Then things got interesting.
What do you mean? Not exactly.
Bruce asked, interest abruptly piqued. Because if he wasn't a mutant, well, that opened a whole host of possibilities, some of which wouldn't have been on the table a year previously, but seeing as aliens actually existed, they were now. Bruce wasn't about to discount anything anymore, no matter how unlikely it sounded. It's, complicated? Peter offered, wide-eyed and shifty. I mean, I kinda wasn't born this way. There was a thing at Oscorp, a tour thing. I went, and well, Spider. Bruce tried hard not to laugh. Peter was clearly still very nervy, if that nearly incoherent babble was anything to go by. Not that he blamed Peter at all, really. Even taking Natasha out of the equation, there were a lot of people and abilities to be scared by in the room. Peter was also giving Bruce a look that was pure adulation. Bruce remembered getting that look a lot before the accident that had created the Hulk. Science geek kids got that look when in the same room as someone they wanted to emulate or thought was the best thing ever. Once upon a time, Bruce had been pretty high on the list of people such kids geeked out about. Bruce patted the seat next to him. The one Tony usually commandeered. Betty always took the one on the other side. Was in fact sitting there now with a sort of amused look in her eye. Bruce knew well. She'd spotted the fanboying too.
Come take a seat and try that again. Like Sam said, we won't bite, I promise.
Bruce tried. It was even odds if the kid would take him up on the offer or faint. Peter scurried over and Bruce began to see what John and Rogue, and Bobby, who'd been there at the time but returned to the mansion, had seen. Peter moved oddly. Part of it could be the nerves the poor kid was obviously dealing with, but there was something in the way he moved that reminded Bruce of Remy, which hinted at the kid's skeleton and or musculature not being standard human. Dr. Brenner, Peter didn't quite seem to be able to speak coherently and looked to be half a second from flailing. Bruce took pity on him and smiled.
A fan of my work?
He guessed. Peter nodded, then visibly tried to gather himself into something resembling coherence. He took a deep breath and blew it out, then tried again. Okay, so about 2 months ago, maybe a bit less, my class went to Oscorp on a tour of their R&D division. They had a bunch of spiders they were working with for something. Only one of them had escaped its cage somehow before we arrived. It bit me. I got really sick that night, but the next day... Peter flailed at Ant. Yeah, powers. I'm really strong. Not sure how strong. Controlled testing isn't a thing I've been able to manage, but well above normal for even a weightlifter. And I can climb and stick to anything, even glass. Bruce's eyebrows headed for his hairline. The story beggared belief. If you weren't an Avenger. There were stranger stories with that lot. That said, they needed to get Peter into a lab as soon as possible. There was no telling what else could happen.
I'm guessing finding out more about that is at the top of your list?
He asked. Peter nodded emphatically. Yeah, definitely. I've been, doing stuff. Mostly trying to get a handle on the strength, really. It's pretty extreme. Noticeable if I'm not really super careful. And sometimes even when I am. And I really don't want to get the wrong sort of attention,
Worried about your parents?
Bruce guessed. He wasn't prepared for the flash of grief on Peter's face. No. It's just me and my aunt. She doesn't know. At least I don't think so. She's pretty smart, so she might. But Peter did flail, then one hand flapping over his head. She's got enough to deal with.
Phil piped up then.
Are you concerned that you might react badly? Peter made a seesaw motion with his hand. She hasn't ever said anything bad about powered people in general. About the ones that make trouble? Oh yeah, she has plenty to say about them. A smile flickered across Peter's face. She ran in for days about the thing at the Statue of Liberty. I was kind of afraid she'd try to find that Magneto guy and put him over her knee or something. Peter wasn't quite prepared for broken jaw near falling out of their chairs laughing. Most of the adults looked at least vaguely amused.
I would pay to see that,
Rogue gasped out between giggles. Peter grinned. Yeah, I was kind of the same. Except when I was going, oh God, please no, that would end badly, he admitted. But I guess part of me can't help but think that being okay with powered people who were... He waved a hand. Over there and, not related to you and that you don't have to interact with is different from one that's, living in your house. He sighed and focused on the table for a minute. And my uncle died a couple weeks after I got bit, so I haven't really wanted to put more on her than she's already dealing with. He shifted in the chair, curling his legs more under him. It wasn't that sitting normally hurt or anything like that. It was just that the crouching thing he'd started doing after getting bitten felt more comfortable, natural, something like that. It was also one of the reasons he tended to worry about the changes just keeping going, because really, less than 2 months, and it felt more comfortable and natural to crouch than to sit. That was worrying. And God help him, if he ever suddenly developed the ability to shoot webs without technological help, he was going to freak out.
Do you know the species of spider that bit you?
Dr. Banner asked. Peter sighed. That's part of the problem. They were crossbreeding and manipulating genes, he said. They had one that was a combination of all the most lethal spiders, one that was a combo of the best web spinners, that sort of thing. The one I got bit by was supposedly the spider version of Captain America. Peak performance in all categories. And there's no telling what they did to get that spider, or what they did to it once they had it.
Would you be okay with me taking a few blood and skin samples?
Dr. Banner wanted to know. Peter heaved a sigh of relief. Yes, please. As long as they stay here. Not really wanting God and everyone to have access to that stuff,
Very much so.
Dr. Banner agreed.
Come on, we'll head down to the labs.
He pushed to his feet and headed for the elevator. I'll probably have to leave after we get the samples, Peter admitted as he followed behind. My aunt thinks I'm at the library doing research for a school project. He sighed in relief after they got out of the dining room. And can I just say that you guys are a bit much to handle because... Wow! Seriously!
Dr. Banner nodded. Not a problem, though I do recommend you tell your aunt as soon as you can. The longer you wait, the more complicated things will get.
Then he grinned.
And just think, this is us on a quiet day. I'm actually kind of glad you didn't show up before we went to Asgard. We weren't exactly at our best at the time.
I've been considering it on and off since the bite, Peter admitted. It's mostly just getting up the nerve to break it to her. Most of me knows she won't freak out, but part of me insists that she will. He rolled his eyes, then snorted. You guys not paying it your best? And that's kind of a scary thought, Peter said. And do I even want to know what got you guys in a bad mood? He asked. You'll probably need to know, as it's going to affect things around here for the foreseeable future, Dr. Banner told him. At least the basics, anyway. Short version is, Hydra is still around, and they sent an assassin to take out some or all of us. Peter flinched. Okay, I can see how that would make people cranky, especially Captain America. He agreed. It gets worse. The assassin was Sergeant Barnes, Steve's best friend. Hydra apparently found him and, well, did not very nice things to him, Dr. Banner said. Peter stopped in his tracks and stared at him in horror. Pete! Oh man, He let out a whistle. Yeah, definitely a bad day all around, I'm guessing. To put it mildly, Dr. Banner said. That's actually why we went to Asgard. Their healers could help Sergeant Barnes where ours couldn't. Well, that's good, Peter said as they walked into the lab. He tossed his backpack onto a counter, hopped up next to it, and automatically settled into a crouch. So, is now a good time to say I'm a huge fan of your work? Peter asked with a grin. Seriously, huge! He was a little startled when Dr. Banner left. Tony said almost exactly the same thing when we first met just before the invasion, he said. Then Dr. Banner pointed at Peter's bag. What's in the backpack? Peter blushed a little. My stuff. Well, for the spider thing, I kind of more or less accidentally got into a crime-fighting gig, and I didn't want to be recognized, so I put some stuff together. So you are the so-called Spider-Man, Dr. Banner said as he pulled out the things he'd need to take samples from Peter. I was wondering after you said you got powers. Yeah, I've tried to stay out of pictures, but that's not all that easy, Peter said. The less people know about me, the less danger my aunt's in. All right, Dr. Banner said. Roll up your sleeves, please. Peter obeyed, and Dr. Banner drew 2 vials of blood, then took skin scrapings from various places. Or started to. He got a little distracted by the micro hairs on Peter's hands. This is fascinating. I presume this is how you're able to cling to surfaces? Dr. Banner asked. Yep, Peter said, then unable to resist the temptation completely, he kicked off his tennis shoes. The hairs could not reach through that much material, and leapt upwards towards the ceiling and clung there, looking down at Dr. Banner with a grin. I have no idea just how strong the grip thing is, Peter admitted. But it's at least strong enough to keep me where I want to be. How much I can carry without starting to slip is one of those things I haven't really figured out a safe way to test. He hopped back down to the counter he'd been crouching on. Not like there's all that many places around where I'd have a nice soft spot to land if my grip gave. Dr. Banner nodded. I can see where that would be a concern. He agreed. He did manage to get all the skin samples after that. I will check these over. It'll be at least a few days before all the results are ready, Dr. Banner told him. Peter put his shoes back on. Thanks. I really appreciate it. I'll come back in a couple days then. Sooner if you like, Bruce said.